Good morning, welcome to Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket, George DiGianni Train Station Fitness Show. Jim, go ahead and put your mic on, hit that red button there. Oh, good, thank you. And so in the studio today, I have my good friend Jim Judd. He's a clinical nutritionist. Jim and I have known each other for how long? 8 years? Something like that?
Yeah, at least.
At least, right?
Yeah.
And we've worked together with my 21-day body makeover program and Jim's patients. Jim has specializes in helping people who have cancer, who are going through treatment, to help support the treatment they're going through so that it's more effective and less damaging to the body. That's his specialty. And one of the things that you wanted to cover today is anti-aging.
Don't you love that topic?
I don't. I don't. It actually bothers me a lot because it's like when I mentioned last week on the show, these diluted phrases or words like "I love you." You say "I love you" to someone, you know, it may give you the feel good the first 10 times, and then all of a sudden it becomes diluted because you're saying it all the time out of habit.
Yeah.
And so the same thing goes through my mind with this whole anti-aging talk. Personal trainers, doctors, nutritionists, oh, anti-aging, eat this, do this. And I think just the definition is subjective in people's minds, where if you talk with a female about anti-aging, she thinks Botox, surgery, you know, these injections. And it has to do with how you look, and it's narrow-minded, right?
Yeah. Well, and my belief is that the general term of anti-aging encompasses all of those that you just mentioned. And because there's such a collective consciousness of what aging is, that for me, the definition more describes that there is the possibility to not only slow that process, but in some instances actually reverse that process with certain functions in the body. That's how I see it.
So you talk about reversing certain processes of anti-aging. What the hell does that mean? No matter what you do, you are going to age.
For instance, the process that happens whenever someone has fatty liver disorder, which we see a lot of today, that actually pushes the aging process of the liver more than it normally would.
Sure.
So by slowing that process down, that's an anti-aging reversal. When you get the liver decongested, get the fatty deposits out of the liver and let it function its normal. That actually can cascade into a number of benefits that we relate today to anti-aging. I totally get what you're talking about,
right,
because it's a huge umbrella that people now throw out to grab you,
sure,
and and with unreal expectations, because of course we're aging.
And I don't think if anybody were to come out with a website or a product or some type of marketing message that discusses anti-aging, that anyone will really look at it. And of course, I'm speaking for everybody here, not something you really want to do, but I'm just saying this out loud because we're not taking any calls today. But my opinion is if someone were to come out with some marketing message about anti-aging or use those words, that it's so diluted today that it won't capture anyone's attention.
Yeah. Well, and in my business, Nutritional Profiles, our tagline is to help people stay lean, energetic, disease-free, and slow the aging process.
Right.
So that's really where I come from on it. And I get what you're saying, is that it'll lose people when they say, you know, anti-aging miracle, in whether it's a superfood, whether it's an antioxidant.
Or an injection.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So coming up next, one of the things Jim wanted to discuss was, when he talks about superfood, we won't hit that right now, but food quality is key. As a matter of fact, before we do that, here's what I'd like to do. I want you to list, and you'll have time between now and the time we go through this break. I want you to list all of the things people are doing every single day of their lives, or someone is doing at some point every day, that creates rapid aging. What are they doing specifically that's creating rapid aging? You can do this in bullet point form if you want, just to go down the list. And then after that, I want to go into the food quality being key. Because when someone says, okay, well, George and Jim, okay, I'm going to start exercising, I'm going to start eating well, and that's all I need to know, right? Vegetables and some fruits and lean meats, and start exercising. Why does this show need to go any further?
Well, because people are still stuck in that old model of chicken breast steamed broccoli and brown rice.
Or
That's going to get them from point A to point B.
Exactly,
Right.
and misunderstanding what healthy eating really is.
Right.
So that's what we'll do. Coming up next with Jim Judd at 706 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. 714 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. George DiGianni. I'm reading while I'm talking to you. Excuse me. George DiGianni, Train Station Fitness Show, here with my good friend Jim Judd from Nutritional Profiles. And one of the things that what we're discussing today is the whole anti-aging.
Say it.
I know, right? I hate saying it. Marketing ploy and just all of that surrounds it. But I think it's important to be detailed when we talk about this. You say, well, George, come on. I just want to lose a little weight. I want to have a little more energy. I'm having an issue with pain in my joints. I don't care about this anti-aging stuff. The thing that goes through my mind and what concerned me about this show is if I'm discussing anti-aging, that people are going to think about tighter skin, looking younger, and da-da-da-da-da. And while most people, if not everyone, would like to have that, it's so much more than that. Because if you're looking for fat loss, sustained fat loss, more energy throughout the day, better quality sleep, on and on and on and on, that is an exact or direct correlation to anti-aging, and the tools that Jim is going to provide today, that's just a different angle, if you will, to get more of that, whatever that is. So if this was a show all about how to lose fat as fast as you possibly can and keep it off forever, well, the show that we're discussing today can actually help with that intention, maybe not as fast as you want it to be, but it'll certainly help get you in that the direction you're looking to go. This is just a different angle to bring about the desires you have when it comes to health and fitness. So one of the things I wanted you to rattle off are everything that you believe contributes to people aging faster. And I want to ask, you don't have to do this in order except for the first one. What is the number one thing people do that makes them age faster than they can possibly age? And I think I know what it is in my head, but you're the nutrition expert. I want to find out from you. What is that?
Processed food.
Processed food.
Yeah,
So
what were you thinking?
I was going right to sugar.
Yeah.
Sugar, ruins the elastin in the collagen in your face. The elastin in your skin becomes loose. You can never get that back again once it's gone. You can build up the collagen, but never that elastin once it's completely gone.
Right.
And that's just the looks part.
Mm-hmm. And that's if you just move, that one simple thing of moving but that's subjective as well, because one person's idea of what is a processed food is very different than another person's idea of what a processed food is.
Very true.
Some people will even lump in, well, because you have to butcher an animal to get the meat, that's a form of processing. So certainly it is. But whenever
it is, but it's not.
Yeah. Whenever I say processed food, I mean anything that has to be, boxed, canned, processed, chemically altered. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was explaining to somebody recently. I said, when you go in the grocery store, whenever you pick up a piece of broccoli, there's no ingredient list on there because it's only broccoli. There's nothing to it unless it's a canned vegetable, of course, which I really say to stay away from. But anything that's processed actually has a degenerative effect on the cellular system. So that's why processed foods, moving away from that, is one of the best things you can do. Most people are completely reliant on 60% processed foods in their diet today. And so get it.
But Jim, it tastes good. That's what I crave. I want my Ritz crackers. I want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I want ice cream. Don't take these things away from me. They taste good. I crave them.
Then be a slave to your cravings instead of really looking at how do I want to look and feel. Because I haven't met a person yet who is not interested when someone says, wow, you look great. I haven't seen you in 10 years. You look fantastic. You haven't changed a bit. Every person responds to that. So that's my tip, that person is interested in slowing the aging process.
The one that really gets me is when we talk about this information to people who aren't necessarily listening to this show or trying in life. I'm doing the air quotes, trying, because you talk with them about this and they'll say, well, I've been smoking forever and eating whatever I want and I don't exercise and I feel great, nothing's wrong with me. And so it comes down to the whole awareness mentality that I've discussed for quite a while about your body speaking to you in symptoms, and it's constantly talking to you. So if you have a headache once or twice a month and you're not sleeping really well, and you have some joint pain, but it's just you attribute it to getting older, and you get 2 or 3 colds per year, and on and on and on, and you just attribute this to normal life, and you think there's nothing wrong with you, and this is normal. Well, it's normal for you. It may be the norm, but it's not normal. It's not how the body wants to function. And so that's where you really need to become aware. One of the things that Samantha says, she goes, ever since I've become more aware of all this stuff, I find that I don't feel good at certain points. And she didn't attribute it to looking at how much more aware she is, that there's nothing wrong with her. If anything, there's everything that is right with her. And people who are just not aware just go about their life and they're not paying attention. You know what I mean? They're not paying attention to when they're not feeling good. But when you pay attention to when you're not feeling good, you think, oh my God, all these things are wrong with me all of the time. No, they're not. You have the ability to make an adjustment to make these changes, and she's done that, and she feels great most of the time now.
Yeah, well, and I think a great percentage of the population is a slave to marketing that they see on television and radio and announcements and the internet of, are you feeling this? Are you feeling this? Do you feel this? So they'll be naturally driven towards that. I think everyone knows inherently that I'm supposed to feel good. It really feels better to feel good throughout the day, and that there is a complete direct correlation between feeling good and what you're eating each day and the quality of food that you're eating.
So now, what are the other things that people are doing that makes them age faster than they really should or could?
Well, whenever you and I were talking about this show, and I was thinking about it, is that one thing that I see today with clients and with just the general population is that and I love this question, who's cooking your food? Who is cooked? Because most people, whenever they drive through a restaurant, whenever they go in a restaurant, whatever, they don't see how the food is prepared. They don't even see who's preparing the food. And so it's like they don't know where it's coming from. Someone said recently, well, really, really well. And I said, well, let's talk about what's really well. And do you know where your favorite restaurant do you know where they buy their food? Are they getting it from local farmers? Are they getting it from one of the big food purveyors in town that just provide that? All the way down to, is the mayonnaise that's on that sandwich, is it real mayonnaise, or is it just, you don't know what it is? People don't know.
So I know there are people listening right now who are saying, hey guys, my favorite restaurant is this. This is my favorite food. I don't care how they make it. It tastes great. And if I know how it's made, all the antibiotics and hormones in the meat and the pesticides on the vegetables, and the vegetables don't have any nutrients in them, and the condiments that they're using and all this stuff, and the bread I'm eating is GMO bread and all that stuff. If I knew that, I wouldn't want it. And you're going to take that away from me. And let me just finish this.
Yeah.
And I have to say that we wouldn't be taking anything away from you. You would be aware and most likely not make that choice to eat that food or in that place again. I know I have done it. And in the thing that I have struggled with over the years, and maybe other people listening, is this analysis paralysis, where you learn so much that you just want to throw your hands up in the air and say, screw it. I'm going to have X, or I'm going to have Y. And I've got to tell you, it's pretty liberating when you do that. And it's not an issue because I control it. I know what's in it, or I know what it is. I'll have it maybe once a week or whatever it is. I have donut Sundays with Samantha.
Donuts. Well, let me give you a really good example of that. Is that screw it, I'm going to have it anyway. When someone says that to me, I say, if you're going to the point of screw it, I'm going to have it anyway, then make sure it's a really great, high-quality selection. Like, if it's like, God, I got to have some ice cream, then go get Haagen-Dazs, because it only has 5 ingredients, and you can pronounce every one of them because they're just, that's the whole point of moving towards a higher quality of living. Because if you're like, if you say, as the example you gave a moment ago, I'm in this restaurant, I don't care how they prepare it, I don't care what's going on with it. We know now that there are disease states, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes that is off the chart, that's never happened before, that are directly related to the low quality of ingredients that are going into the foods that people are eating mostly.
So as we have to come back for a moment, we're going to go back to awareness. People in their 30s, 40s, maybe even later than that, still believe that they're invincible because they've not had a quote-unquote disease.
Right.
They've had a cold.
They haven't had an
fever.
event.
Right, haven't had an event. And as the body ages, it becomes less forgiving. So I think that's critical in and of itself, that we are aware of our age and to recognize that you can't eat and get away with what you did when you were 19 like you are now at 40 or 50 or whatever it is.
Right.
You can't do that now like you once did. And go ahead.
I want to interject something here, because even at 19, even
Yeah.
at 20, what I'm seeing today, and I have a perfect example of that, is a young lady that I watched from graduate from college. Beautiful young lady. Got married. She and her new husband, in their mid-20s, were on what I call the typical American diet, which is an aging diet.
Yeah.
It actually pushes you more towards aging because of the lack of nutrient density and the high amount of chemicals that are present in those foods that they're eating. She is now in her late 20s, probably right around 280. She was about
Oh my God.
She was about 100. But George, this is happening more and more and more and more often.
Where did she start?
And you can't say she was at about 125. Beautiful. Size
125.
She's about 280
in 5
now.
years she's become 280.
It was in a very short period of time.
Obviously.
But we see this over and over and over of people, that the example that you gave, if you go, screw it, I'm going to do whatever I want to do all the time, because of what we're being bombarded with today. And I'll give one example of it, and
let's do that coming up next.
It's a great example.
We'll talk about that, and also one of the things that Jim wants to touch on is slowing the rust. Here's one thing I'd like for you to take away before we take this break. If we identify with people who are old with a certain disease, prostate cancer, cancer in general, heart disease, and anything, Alzheimer's, if you attribute old people to these diseases, these conditions, then it's important, I think, to take a step back and recognize, if you are eating this aging diet, that you're inviting these ailments to be in your life sooner. You're making the body break down and age sooner, which is to say, if you're 30 years old and you're eating this way, overweight and everything else, are you really 50 years old? If you're 40 years old, are you really 60? And if you're 50, are you really 70 or 80? Which is to say, that, just to expand upon that, are you bringing these things into your life much sooner, which shows younger people today are diabetic. They're having specific diseases that they never had before.
Hypertension in their 30s.
In their 30s. So you're bringing all these aging ailments that shouldn't be in your life, if ever, until your 60s, 70s, or 80s, but you're bringing them into your life sooner.
So well put.
Right? So thank you. So let's talk about slowing the rust coming up next with Jim Judd at 727 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. 734 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. George DiGianni, Train Station Fitness Show, talking with my guest today, Jim Judd from nutritionalprofiles.com. We're discussing anti-aging, and you know, it wound up being a better show than I thought, because it's not just, hey, it's anti-aging and you're going to look younger, have tighter skin, but we're helping you identify what you may be doing that increases your age faster than it ought to, which also says or suggests that if you suspect certain diseases are in your family and those diseases are in your future, I could also empower you and say, well, would you like to not have those and prevent those? But that doesn't seem to do it. So the stance I'm taking today is, would you like to bring those into your life 20 years or 30 years sooner? So if you're in your 30s and you're supposed to, or you're predisposed rather, to have a specific ailment at 60, 70, or 80, cancer, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, anything like that, would you like to have that in your 30s, in your 40s? Well, George, I don't want to have it at all.
Well, but that's what we're seeing today, though, is all of the disease states that were most commonly associated with old age,
Yeah.
whether it be hypertension, heart disease, stroke, diabetes. All of those 50 years ago were considered diseases
Of the age.
of the age,
Right.
of the older age. Now we're seeing them. So that's what I talk about when I'm saying anti-aging or slowing the aging process. Because if you're slowing the aging process, and your chances of developing those degenerative illnesses will remain in far old age like they should.
Right.
Because I mean, we're aging. You're
People
absolutely
always
right.
want to know about supplements, Jim. What's the best supplement for anti-aging? What's the best supplement to stave off this disease? And I know this is common sense, but please let me say it again. The words supplement, like anti-aging, like I love you, are all diluted.
They are.
And so when you take a supplement, its original intention is to supplement what you're not receiving in your diet. And so if you eat a horrible diet and expect a supplement to take its place and help you prevent these degenerative diseases or increase your immune system or help you lose body fat, you are going to be sorely mistaken or wonder why, well, this supplement is crap, it's not working for me. So instead of blaming the supplement or wondering why it's not working to meet your desired intention, then maybe you need to step back and say, okay, since we recognize certain food is devoid of nutrients, such as certain packaged food or all packaged food, and even our fruits and vegetables today, depending on the soil they're grown in and so on, if they're devoid of those nutrients, then I need to supplement what I'm doing when I'm doing a good job.
Right. And one thing that has been scientifically proven is that someone that's even on a crummy diet, someone who's driving through Taco Bell for breakfast, which I have that. It's interesting to me what I hear people will do every day. They'll drive through for breakfast. They'll grab a quick lunch. There's so much nutrient density that's missing from their everyday diet that they think is pretty clean.
Right.
But
Because it's
actually
protein, Jim.
Yeah.
And it's a wheat tortilla and it's thin.
Yeah, it's like this lady told me. It's that old thing that I say. I'm scraping the top off the pizza and throwing the dough away.
Oh my God.
Aren't I doing something good? But the example that I wanted to give you a minute ago was I had a man ask me, he's a dad, because I was helping to put their fifth or sixth grade son with ADD and ADHD medicated for it, which that's a whole nother show, is all the medication that kids are on for that, to clean up the diet. And he said, Jim, I just want him to have a hot dog and a bag of Fritos like I did when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I said, that's a really good point. I said, but that bag of Fritos and that hot dog are not anything like the one you had in 1962. Totally different food product.
See, I would have taken a different stance. I would have said the increased fake foods that we have available today and how kids are able to get access to all of that
Yes.
is what is really affecting them more than the bag of Fritos and the hot dog, because even though there was junk food when we were younger, you didn't have the supersized sodas. You didn't have as much accessibility to all of this stuff. I see it as more variables.
Well, and two, they weren't laced with additives that caused us to want more of it.
Okay,
Just like the
that's
tobacco
true.
industry.
That's
Food
true.
industry today actually enhances foods, and that's what I was trying to explain to this father, because his son was hoarding chili lime Doritos because that neuroexcitotoxin that's been put on that food caused that boy to crave, to want more and more and more and more and more of it. And that's what we're seeing today, is all of these additives that you don't know when you're driving through. It's like the client that I said, that she said, well, whenever I go through Taco Bell, I just get the fajita meat and the onions, and I don't get any of the chips. And you've heard this before.
Yeah.
I mean, you've heard this story. And I said, well, let's look at this. That serving that you're having has 4 days worth of sodium in one serving. Those are the kind of things whenever we say, who's cooking your food? What's in your food? Do you even know?
But hold on, just because it has 4 days worth of serving of salt in it for that we're supposed to have, it's not going to put fat on me. There's no sugar in it, Jim. There's no fat. Why do I care?
But it'll cause you to have hypertension very quickly.
I feel fine. I'll work out later, right? And so then we have to play these roles, though, Jim,
Right?
because that's the
I understand.
attitude. And good. Look, I understand. Samantha and I have pizza Fridays and donut Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
I compensate for it. I've shared this before, where I'll have a huge 2 scoops of raw fiber. And I'll have fat like 20 minutes before. And you say, well, George, is it even worth it? Yeah, I get to have what I want to eat. And by the way, about an hour or so later, I'll work out and I'll do burst training.
Right. And it's so you're taking an effort because you know what you're taking in on Donut Sunday. You know the downside of it. So you're taking precautions to do that. It's just like, the precaution of putting on your seatbelt.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. No, we didn't put on our seatbelts, but it's a requirement today. But there is the common belief that by putting on that seatbelt, you're going to save your life.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about here today, really, is saving your life. And whenever you mention that's what aging is. It's like a pipe rusting. And there are things that you can do to slow that rusting process down.
So let's talk about all of that now.
Yeah, you asked me a minute ago to the number one thing that someone can do in the area of supplementation, which you're right, it's supplementing whatever diet you're currently doing to fill in the gaps. There are certain micronutrients. They come in the form of all of the letter vitamins, which are A, B, C, all the letter vitamins that we know whenever they are put in to the body, if they're missing from the foods, that there definitely is a benefit that you receive from that. Whenever the cells recognize nutrient density, they start communicating with one another better. The actual life of the cell extends. We know that in the presence of certain antioxidants, certain B vitamins, certain minerals. Mm-hmm. So even though those are all missing from someone's diet, just the simple process of supplementing it back in, that's why food companies started enriching foods, because they would be stripped out from process. They put it back in, and hopefully you'll achieve that from the.
Well, that's the biggest bag of BS I've ever heard come out of your mouth.
In what way?
By saying fortified with, and they put the vitamins back in. You and I both know, and I know I'm going to give people crazy head here, tired head. You and I both know that when they put these vitamins back in, they're not putting vitamins back in that are recognized by the body. Rather, the vitamins that go back in are the cheapest, processed, chemically made form vitamins that don't help us in any way possible.
You're absolutely right. And that's why I said, whenever I made that statement, I said that's their attempt to fill in the gaps on those. It doesn't work in that way, though.
Right.
Whenever you process a food and strip it all out and you try to plug it back in, again, if it's not the quality that your body will recognize as nutrient density, it's useless. It does nothing.
So when people are buying these, it's kind of funny, I still talk about this. I've been doing this for about, 10 years, where I go on these talks and I talk about the type of supplements that are critical that we have. And people always think that I'm going to discuss fat loss supplements and energy supplements. They don't recognize that the main part of the discussion is when we talk about the type of supplements your body recognizes. And if you go to one of these big warehouses and buy, like I always use this extreme example, 1 billion pills for $1, and you think, wow, I got over on them, I have this great value. Uh-huh. You don't realize not only are you not benefiting yourself, but you're actually causing harm.
You're right.
So anytime you see DL in a supplement, DL means it's chemically made, it's synthetically made. Did you know you can enhance your chances of having lung cancer? I put this on my Instagram account, by the way. Having lung cancer if you have corn oil, soy, or canola.
Yes, and the reason why,
and it's vitamin E, though, Jim.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, but that's an excellent example of of food additives that are present in processed foods that people are eating every day that are actually causing cell death in the body. The cells won't live as long because they're exposed to.
Now change that vitamin E in the same study. Change the vitamin E to consist of olive oil. What is it? Walnut oil? Would that be true?
Walnut oil, avocado
oil, and all of a sudden you've decreased your chances of having lung cancer. And by the way, These other oils actually taste great.
Yeah.
It's not like you're taking anything out. They taste great.
But let's take it even a step further, George. Let's, I think that it's better to get the avocado oil from eating the whole avocado
Sure.
than it is to press out the oil and eat it.
Sure.
Again, to me, oil is a supplement.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to get a food to look and feel a little bit tastier, and it's also a way. Now, granted, oils done properly can be medicinally therapeutic
Sure.
in the body, and that's a proven scientific point.
Coming up next, I want you to address two things. People who exercise intensely, whether that increases their life or slows the aging process or not, we'll just address that. And then oxygen in the bloodstream.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll discuss that next. Jim Judd coming up, 746 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket.
Sports Radio 1310 and 96.7 FM.
Hey,
The Ticket
videos,
reminds
they
you,
can do those.
a smile is a gift. Free to the giver
trying to
and
make
precious
I wanna
to the
make it
recipient. But giving the finger is free too, and a little more personal and sincere.
754 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. George DiGianni, Train Station Fitness Show. My good friend in the studio, Jim Judd from nutritionalprofiles.com. We're discussing anti-aging today and all that means and what you're doing to accelerate the disease that might be in your family, and you're bringing it closer to the future. You're saying, I can't wait to have degenerative disease. Bring it on. Give me a cane, give me medication and an oxygen mask. I can't wait. I'm 40 years old. I'm looking forward to having cancer. That's what you're doing if you're eating a bunch of processed foods, you're not exercising, you're smoking, and by the way, you have a pessimistic mentality. You like that, Jim? Isn't that a lot of positive things to say when we come back from commercial?
Yeah, I think people are really thinking, are considering, wow, am I falling into any of those categories? But you're absolutely right, because the foods, the latest study that came out that put Americans on the health scale at number 14 globally. I mean, think of all of the cultures that are a lot healthier just because of the processed foods.
And people will say, well, hold on, they just don't have access to the medications. That's where a lot of doctors go. They don't have access to the medications, right?
Yeah. To me.
Well, I think it depends on the region or the country,
right?
Some don't have it, but they're also living a better quality of life in many respects. I want you to address, and we don't have much time.
Okay.
People who exercise intensely, does it affect the length of their telomeres in a way that they are less healthy? Is it a bad idea?
Well, you just mentioned a great word. They're telomeres, and just briefly tell them what telomeres are on the chromosomes.
The ends of chromosomes that actually replicate, which they're not supposed to do, but they'll do it at a certain pace. And if they do it at a faster pace than normal, you don't have them replicate, and they want to become, or they don't replicate and have the same length. They have shorter and shorter lengths, which invites disease and
Correct.
makes you age faster.
That's right. So the whole point is you want your telomeres to either stay the same or lengthen.
Right.
For that, and I believe that intense exercise, and maybe this might be where you and I kind of go in different directions on that, but I think intense exercise actually oxidizes your body faster, and that's the rusting process. Anytime that when you set a pipe out and expose it to air unprotected, it's going to oxidize faster, and our bodies will do the very same thing.
So the way I look at this is, I can't
oxidative stress.
Yeah, I can't say you're wrong, of course, but when if I step back and I look at this as a whole, and I look at all the pieces that affects stress, oxidizing, free radicals, all that stuff, through food, smoking, toxins in our food, toxins in our air, exercise. If I look at all of this, just not to make myself have to live in a bubble and make myself crazy, I have to pick which type of rust oxidizing I want to have that will keep me sane. Right. And so where I used to beat up people who jog for long periods of time just a couple of years ago, I recognize they have to pick what keeps their sanity for them.
And that's where I like to introduce the term playing. Because everybody today, exercise is about work.
Sure.
It's about working to achieve something. Right. Well, we're constantly trying to achieve something, but what if you turn that into some type of playtime for yourself? Right. People, that's a good form of exercise because it takes your mind to a completely different place.
So I'll give you an example. I've been doing some 2-a-day workouts, not to lose body fat, just to do some 2-a-day workouts, right? I wanted to feel better. I just wasn't feeling on my game, and so I'll go to the gym and I'll do some workouts, a workout, and then I'll go on a bike ride. But I'll go on a bike ride with the intention of just going on a bike ride, not to make it exercise. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to do it because I've done it for the day and so on.
So you're just on a cruiser bike, just
well, not a cruiser bike.
Yeah.
I'm on my hybrid mountain bike, and so but inevitably, 100% of the time when I go on the bike ride, it becomes an exercise.
Right.
But the mentality is that I'll go do this bike ride and just make it leisure, just to be active, right? Quote unquote active or play. And it's just a really, really good way to look at it, and you wind up tricking yourself. I wrote this in my book years ago, how I used to go in the grocery store and really piss off a lot of the clerks because I found that all of a sudden I leave my home and I'm an adult, I can do whatever I want. So I was really hungry, I'm in the grocery store, and I wound up putting all the bad things in the cart that I wanted. Apple pie, ice cream, whatever it was that I wanted years ago. And I put healthy things in the cart also. I get to the checkout counter and I realize, you know what? I don't have to have this stuff. I don't have to rebel against anybody or anything. I don't want it. So I took all the things out and left it there. Of course, the clerks are not happy. They had to put it back, or somebody had to put it back. And I only got the healthy things. And it's because I gave myself permission. And so when you just look at this, if you're aware or a different perspective when it comes to exercise or eating, and you're not rebelling against yourself or anybody else who isn't holding you down and saying you have to do this, whatever this is, it tends to make it where it's liberating,
Right.
certainly, and it makes us do things that are better for us.
Well, because innately we want to be free. We
Yeah.
want to be free to do whatever we want to do. And it depends on what your, again, the goals and objectives, but I think everyone's goal and objective, maybe not, is to reach that expanded age, which people are living longer today, in a really healthy way, where you're not in a facility wasting away and just on 14 medications, which is more common than ever before.
And that's true, it is.
Yeah.
You know, people say, well, George, we're living longer than we ever have, but we're living longer with less quality of life and more issues.
Absolutely. And when you talk about, genetic expression and such as that,
Right.
because I have, personally family members that are in, assisted living facilities,
Right.
From a genetic expression, from doing too many of the quote unquote bad things.
Right.
throughout their life.
Jim, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you, George. It's always a pleasure.
Nutritionalprofiles.com. Thank you very much.